Life can be full of surprises, but not always the good kind. That's why we're committed to providing safe, quick, and cost-effective care, and we keep it simple. Just walk in. We're here for you. Learn more today.
With exclusive buyer insights and our 100% money-back guarantee, we're confident we'll find buyers for your home. Howard Hanna. Home happens here.
All right, welcome in Wednesday night in the middle of February, post-Valentine's Day. Randy, I'm hoping you had a good Valentine's Day.
It was a great Valentine's Day. Thank you very much. And really, in the
Would
middle of February?
Would Janet agree with that, I should say?
I think she would. I think she would. But, you know, I was going to take notice of this. It's the middle of February, Francis, and we had a 64-degree day out there today. Unbelievable.
I know. I'm trying to take advantage. I was going to try to take advantage of it yesterday, but the day got away from me. Not that we're getting daylight later in the day, too.
Exactly.
You know, pretty soon, I think it's the weekend of hockey states. It's daylight saving time, so it'll be like dark. It'll be like 7 at night on that, you know, when the states are all wrapped up and it'll still be light out.
Absolutely. That'll be a good thing. That'll be a good thing.
All right, so welcome in. This is the 2023 Boys Hockey Playoff Preview Show. I'm Francis Beck, joined by Randy Schultz of New York Hockey Online. If you joined us for our girls hockey playoff preview, this will work just the same. If not, I'll explain it to you what we're going to do. So we have reached out to the coaches. We've asked them to tell us a little bit how their season's going so far, who are their top players, who have been their surprises, the keys to their success. We got about 20 coaches to get back to us, so we're going to talk about that. And then we also interviewed about several players and a couple coaches as well from the Fed to get their input to see how they're doing this season, how they're feeling about the playoffs, which actually start tonight because, I don't know, originally they were going to have a game on Sunday, but they moved it so it's now happening tonight. Remember last year they had, 4 games on Saturday, 4 on Sunday, with some extra games on Thursday and Friday. Now they're going 1 tonight. They're doing the large Thursday, and then they're going to do 2 Friday and 4 Saturday, and Sunday they'll at least get off.
Exactly. and then they get ready into the next round of the playoffs right after that.
All right, so why don't we jump into it? Why don't we first go over the standings? We'll just quickly do that. We're going to focus again, of course, on the playoff divisions. We know the regular season, they were split up by ECI, CNFL. We're just going to go straight by the divisions for the playoffs because that's what we're here for. That's the playoff show.
Exactly.
So we'll start. Large school, it's going to be Orchard Park. There's, of course, the defending champion. They were undefeated until Far West Regionals last year. They are up number 1. They have a divisional record of 9-2-1, 19 points on the year. We're going to hear from their goalie a little bit later in the show. And then second place is Lancaster. Third is Clarence, which is really tight race, the top 4. We have 19 points for Orchard Park, 18 for Lancaster, and then Clarence and Will North are tied at 17. And then 5 and 6, it was Frontier, and then Lockport, Niagara Falls.
Yep. And there's no doubt that's still going to be, I think, a tough division to get out of somehow. I mean, there's some good schools in there. You have your defending champions that'll be back again. Of course, I always tell those kind of teams, you're the ones carrying the target on your back now. Everybody wants a piece of you, so you're going to have a tougher hill to climb, so to speak, to get back to that top again.
Yeah, you'll definitely hear from them. Of course, Lancaster, we saw them a couple times, and we can't forget about 2 great coaches below them, Rick Brooks and Bob Rosen. They're going to have their teams fired up for this postseason.
Absolutely, and you know, it's like I said on the with the girls playoff preview, you throw everything out the door. When this is the postseason now starting, all the teams are equal, even though they're seeded a little bit differently, but No, it's a one-game elimination, and anybody can come up with a big game here, and you could get some real surprises here.
All right. In the meantime, why don't we jump over? I messed up here. We're going to start with private schools. So quickly, we'll come back to the large schools, but quickly, let's do the private schools, Monsignor Martin standings, and then we'll get into their team questionnaires. I know I threw you off, Randy, didn't I?
Not at all, Francis. I get so used to it. It's not a problem at all. Not a problem.
All right. So again, another defending champion is leading the way in Monsignor Martin. It's Nichols. They're coming off winning the Niagara Cup last year. I think it's still called the Niagara Cup, right?
As far as I know, but the way
do you have any idea the history of that?
Not at this point, but I'll get that looked up before we start broadcasting some things here. And yeah, absolutely.
So Nichols leading the way, 17 points on the year, 8-1-1 in the division. They're followed by St. Francis at 14 points, 6-2-2 in league play. Then there's a little bit of a drop off. You have St. Mary's 3-2-5. Followed by St. Joe's, Bishop Timon, and Canisius. You look at this, team, pretty much very similar to what it was last year, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. With the way the teams finished in that this season, absolutely.
And not only that, but if you look at Nichols' roster, you compare it to last year's, it's almost an entirely different roster.
And that's what makes it so interesting for them to have had the record that they've got this year, that you were able to really replace a lot of these players. I mean, some of them may have moved up, but yes, there's a whole bunch of new names on there. So, yes, they've done quite well. Hats off to the coaching staff for pulling that team through.
All right, so let's get started here with the private schools. So we Coach Gershwitz, I think is how you say his name, he got back to us. We asked a little bit about him. So their top players are McLean Ergetti, Nathan Enright, TJ Bamrick, Griffin Johnston, Miles Santamaria, Casey Colfer, and Drury Smith. As far as their surprise players have been Wolfgar Weber, John Duffett, Lucas Smith, and the challenges they faced this season, you kind of alluded to it. They've been getting every team's best, but same with Orchard Park. They're getting every team's best with Nichols. And one thing they need to do this postseason is not worry about their opponent and execute their game plan.
And the one thing I would give them a lot of credit for, you take a look at their team statistically. Yes, they've got probably 4 or 5 players, as the coach talked about, that they can depend on for scoring, but they've got a pretty good balanced scoring attack. I mean, you take a look down through, there's players on here, a couple goals they chipped in, somebody's got 5, there's 1-1-1, 2. I mean, they could get scoring from anybody, so that really takes a lot of the pressure off their key players in that they can depend on other players to do it.
Yeah, and we mentioned this when we did that Orchard Park game at Nichols. You kind of heard from someone, they're kind of a third period team.
Yes, they can play you tough, or opponents can play them tough for 2 periods, but somehow they find their legs in that third period. When a lot of teams will be running out of gas, they seem to really be putting the pedal to the metal, so to speak, and they really turn it on in that third period.
One of the players who scored in that game was TJ Bamrick. He's one of their top players. We spoke with him about last week about how they're feeling, how the Vikings are feeling heading into this postseason. Let's take a listen. I'm with TJ Bamrick of Nichols. Nichols is right now atop of the Monsignor Martin division. TJ, tell me, what's been the key to your guys' success this year?
Just staying with our values and being smart in our D zone, capitalizing on our opportunities in the O zone, and just playing physical and consistent every game.
What are those values?
Integrity, discipline, unity, and commitment. Stick to those and you'll find success.
All right, you've had a great year so far yourself individually, a bunch of goals and assists. What's been the key to your success?
Being smart in our D zone, getting pucks out when needed, great support from my line mates, working well in our O zone, and just capitalizing on opportunities.
As I mentioned before, you guys are right now at the top of that Monsignor Martin division, defending champs. Is there maybe one team that's going to be a little more of a challenge than the others?
No, I think playoff hockey is a bit different. Any team can give you any game. It just depends on who shows up on any given day.
All right, and finally, what is it going to take for this Nichols team to win back-to-back Niagara Cups?
playing consistent, playing with integrity, and doing the right things every single day, and just working to that common goal, and just chipping away slowly, not looking at that top goal, just slowly chipping away at it, and we'll win.
All right, that was TJ Bamrick from Nichols. Randy, what did you think?
I'll tell you, he summed it up perfectly for that team. They're not. They don't seem to be coming in with a big head or anything. I think they know that they've got their work cut out for them. And one of the things too, we talked about other scores. They've got some pretty doggone good goaltending as well. They've got 2 goaltenders here that have, I think, a combined goals against average of probably around a 1.5, and their save percentage is up around a 9.3, 9.4. So goaltending, if they make any mistakes on that back end, goaltending is going to back them up on this.
You know, I think one thing we should point out before we move on to our next team, this is Nichols' second team in their program. And this is their essentially, 16U teams. So these are all freshmen and sophomores. And the idea is that next year they're going to be on their prep team playing against top competition from all the way in Canada, right?
Yep, absolutely. So they just keep moving up here. But this is a team they're pretty strong. There's no question about it.
Yeah, very impressive for Nichols. All right, we'll move on next to St. Francis. They were the Niagara Cup finalists. They lost to Nichols, and I believe that was a close game, if memory serves me right. I know we did it. I think we did it last year. That game was at the Harbor Center. I think it was a closer game. So this team is back. They're led by Mateo Torres, Bryson Roberts, Brandon Walzak, their goalie, and Nick Eckert, also a goalie. Their surprise player this year has been Max Hudenlocker. The challenges they've been facing, a lot of injuries, and including both of their captains during a tough stretch. So that's been key. One thing they need to do is be resilient and overcome those challenges. And then all coach said as far as their expectations, leave it out on the ice.
And you can't get much more straightforward than that. And the other thing is, too, just like I pointed out with the Nichols team, this team has, yes, they've got their top 3 or 4 players that they can depend on. But after that scoring attack just is pretty balanced. They had a lot of scoring and I think they had to. They had injuries, they had illness, whatever. And so they had to have players step up. So I think this is one of the things that really could make them a real contender in there to take the championship.
Yeah, and Coach said in here, I just saw it, that they did lose in overtime last year. So they were that close to beating this Nichols team. Who knows what's in store for the final if we could see a repeat this year.
And I'm sure for any of the players, which there were a few on that St. Francis team that were there for that last year, that burns in you all year long. They will not forget that now going into the playoffs.
Yeah. All right. Before we wrap up with St. Francis, I spoke with one of their captains, Mateo Torres, earlier this week. Here's what he had to say about the Red Raiders getting ready for the postseason. I'm with Mateo Torres of St. Francis boys hockey. They are in the Monsignor Martin division. Right now, I think in second place in that division. So, Mateo, tell me, what's been the key to your guys' success this season?
I think it's all about having confidence and trusting one another since we're so close as a group together, almost like a brotherhood with each other.
Mateo, you're one of the top players in the Monsignor Martin, if not all of Boys Fed. Tell me, what's been the key to your success this year?
I think it's really just trusting the coach's game plan, trusting my teammates, and relying on them to be there for me and knowing that they'll always come up there for me.
Monsignor Martin, always a tough division. Nichols is doing really well. You've had some games with them. Which team do you think brings you the most challenge, you think, in your division?
I think we're confident against pretty much most teams, but if we had to choose one, I guess we're going to go Nichols based on what happened last year, but with our confidence, we know we can compete with everyone.
How much does last year's loss still linger in the back of your guys' mind?
We still remember all of it, but we know we have the pieces to get back there and succeed this time.
And finally, what's it going to take for you guys to win the Niagara Cup this year?
It's going to take a lot of focus and remain confident and shoot ourselves the whole time.
All right, we're back. That was Mateo Torres, Randy. He was getting ready for picture day, I believe. That's what he told me.
Wow. Okay. Enough said on that. We won't go any further in that.
It's not a hairstyle Randy would have chosen.
Exactly. We'll take a look at what I got on top. Now, I'd envy that actually. It's he's got lots of hair up there to work with. But one of the things I just noticed when going over things for St. Francis, they have a veteran lineup. I mean, we're talking a serious number. I think if I counted correctly on the roster, maybe they didn't play all the time. They had 15 seniors. That's a lot that they've got coming in there. So you've got a lot of guys that remember that overtime game from last year. So they're going to be looking at that for the upcoming playoff season.
All right, next up, we are going to go out to Kenmore and talk about one of the one of those unforgettable faces behind the bench. That's Coach Crozier. Great guy. They're led by St. Joe's, not having a typical St. Joe's year, I think. They're
10-9-5
10-9-5 overall, 3-4-3. Monsignor Martin, I'm sure they're used to being closer to that higher level. But Coach was saying in here, they have a lot of new faces this year. That's been their biggest challenge. They're led by goaltender Josh Garon and Quincy Youngers. They've been kind of splitting time back there. Their surprise players this year have been Patrick Oley, Wiley Pato, and defenseman Evan Bingsignol and Matthew Covelli. But again, they're a young team. The key is for them is going to be to capitalize on their chances. And Coach simply said the mentality they're going into the postseason with is why not us?
Exactly. And again, he's right. They are an inexperienced team. They only have really 4 seniors on their team. But, boy, do they have a boatload of juniors on their team that are gaining experience this year. And, yeah, you can go in. They didn't have an embarrassing season. I mean, it was not typical St. Joe's season. But, yes, the slate's clean now. They're starting fresh. They've got that whole season under their belt. They could, again, surprise some people here.
All right, let's take a look at what Coach had to say. That's so. Oh, sorry, we did already that. I was up at 5 this morning. Try to get to the gym, and this is what I get for being healthy.
It's okay, Francis. No problem. We'll just keep sailing right along here.
All right, next we're going to move on to St. Mary's of Lancaster, the Lancers, led by Coach Mark D'Antonio. They lost in the semifinals last year. They're led by Jacob D'Antonio, Aiden Ebauer, Andrew Baker, and Cameron Loven. They're their key players. Their surprise player, Coach D'Antonio said, has been freshman defenseman Tanyan Aquili. Their biggest challenge is their schedule. They started games late and had breaks in the schedule were forced to play a lot of games at the end. We saw that a little bit in the girls with Lida doing a bunch of games at the end. So their challenge has been their schedule. One thing they're trying to focus on is teamwork. And then he said simply their expectations is just to work hard.
Exactly. And they finished with a overall record of 12-3-5. Granted, their division record was 3-2-5. But again, you had all these games under your belt. And in a way, that can work to your advantage as well. I wouldn't say it's a disadvantage. You've got a team that's now in sort of a sync and a pace, and that could really work to their advantage in the playoffs.
Yeah. And again, this Joe's and Mary's, we're just a few years away. I think, remember when they met in the finals, so really anything could happen with these playoffs. There's no reason why these teams, they turn it up 2 veteran coaches, and maybe they surprise someone above them in this early round of the playoffs.
It's a very good possibility, and that's what makes playoffs so exciting. That's the whole part of it.
All right, and we're going to go to South Buffalo. We're going to talk about the Bishop Timon St. Jude Tigers, coached by Michael Cassidy. They lost in the first round of the playoffs last year. They're led by Cameron Crosboni. We'll hear it better when I talk to him in just a little bit. He's their assistant captain. He's a junior forward. They also have Cohen Springer, Matt Holst, Shane Smith, and David Crampton. Those are their top players. As far as surprise players who's really impressed him, Ian Wazalewski is their sophomore forward. Vincent Ligori, another sophomore forward, and a sophomore defenseman, Barrett Shirkoni. Their challenges, they've had numerous injury sicknesses at the beginning of the year, including an injury to one of their key returning players, Matthew Sands, who was who's already in his third year on the Fed as a junior. So that was a big loss. And then basically to have success, they need to just focus and compete for all 3 periods of the hockey game.
And when you take a look at their team, Priswoni and Springer, yes, are their 2 big scorers. They each recorded 38 points on the season. But when you start, and again, I sound like a broken record here tonight, but when you break down the rest of their team, the scoring really gets spread out quite a bit. And again, you look at their overall record, they finished with a 12-8-1 record, division record. Yes, they were 3-6-1. Okay, I would get that. Plus, they did have some problems at the beginning of the season, as you just alluded to and talked about. So again, this is a team that's coming in the second half of the season here that's hopefully now healthy, ready to go into these playoffs, and it throws it right back that they have as good a chance as anybody does to do some damage in this playoffs if they have to.
All right, on that note, why don't we talk to Cameron? I went down to South Buffalo. What is that ring? Casanova Park to talk to him. Here's what he had to say about his team going into the playoffs. I'm with Cameron Przewozny of Bishop Timon Hockey. Timon is, fighting for a strong spot in the Monsignor Martin playoffs. So, Cameron, tell me, what's kind of been the key to your success? Over 500, what's been the key this year?
I think the key to our main success has just been listening to coaches and sticking to our systems. They're helping us out a lot here, just with hard work. We got it.
You are the top point scorer in all of Monsignor Martin. Tell me what's been the key to your individual success this year.
Yeah, I think the key to my individual success has been all my line mates and just hard work. We're all working. Passing the puck, moving around, puck movement has been really big this year. Just we work as a team.
A lot of good teams in Monsignor Martin. You've had some good games with them. Is there going to be one team that faces the biggest challenge, or what kind of different challenges do you face with your opponents?
Yeah, I think the best team we played so far is definitely Nichols. They're all young kids, but they're great. They're all skilled. They work as a team. They stick to their systems. They got a great coach. But you know what? We could, stick to our systems. We could beat them too. So.
All right, and finally, tell me one thing you guys need to do this postseason in order to have success.
We just got to work hard, listen to our coaches, and stick to our game.
That was Cameron Przewozny from Bishop Timon, as I mentioned in there, leading scorer in Monsignor Martin.
And he made an interesting comment that, they depend on each other and their line mates. And you take a look at the assists out here. Yeah, they do depend. Line mates work. They seem to work very, very well together. A lot of their players had a lot of assists on there, and they just got to continue playing their game in here. And I think they could cause some problems here too.
All right, we'll move on to our final team of the Monsignor Martin, the Niagara Cup playoffs, the Canisius Crusaders. They lost in the first round of the playoffs last year. They unfortunately did not get a win in league play, but they do have 3 wins out of league play. So we're assuming against Section 6 teams. Pulling back up. They are led by defenseman Max Mathan and Tom Stouffer, along with forward Luke Daimler. Their surprise players have been Evan Healy and Tyler Stouffer. The challenges they face this year, goal scoring and being consistent. And that's going to be kind of the key, staying focused in the playoffs. And then they're hoping to learn really from this season and make a run.
And that's going to be the big thing. Again, the coach really gave a lot of the insight into this team, and it's true. They didn't get a lot of big goal scores this year. That was their biggest problem. And really, when you take a look at a lot of the team, guys just did not score goals. So they've got a real problem there. So, again, if they can kind of bring it all together in a playoff, again, anything can happen, but the cards will be stacked against them, no question about it. They're going to have to really show something here with a 3-9-4 overall record, and you mentioned the division record, 0-8-2. They just got to come in and just leave everything they can on the ice and play the best game they can.
All right, Monsignor Martin playoffs start tomorrow at Harbor Center, 6:30. It'll be Canisius at St. Mary's. And then the last game will be St. Joe's at Bishop Timon. Both of those games we just found out will be on the NFHS network. We will show the some of the scheduling for the boys hockey playoffs and where you can watch those games and when they're happening. But that will do it for our first. I think that's all the Monsignor Martin playoffs. So when we come back, we're going to get into the small schools. Boy, did we have a tight race to the end. We'll take a look at it coming up on the 2023 Boys Hockey Playoff Preview Show on Western New York Athletics.
Sometimes it just isn't your day. We all need a little help from time to time. That's why we're committed to providing safe, quick, and cost-effective care. And we keep it simple. Just walk in. We're here for you. Learn more today.
Do you insure a lot of businesses?
Yes, we do.
How about restaurants?
We got a bunch.
Do you cover property damage?
Yes, we do.
How about my equipment?
Covered.
How about sewer backup?
We got it.
What if my cook gets hurt?
They're covered.
Foodborne illnesses?
Covered.
What if my party tent goes down?
Covered under property damage.
And you say this is all under one policy?
One policy.
When do I pay?
Once a month.
Just one time?
Just one.
Is there anything you don't cover?
What's your record for consecutive questions asked?
31.
Tables. We don't do tables.
Gotta love Buffalo.
For all your insurance questions, call the Wolf at 835-WOLF.
We realize now more than ever is the perfect time to have the perfect house. We're confident we'll find your dream home. Howard Hanna. Home happens here.
Welcome back to the 2023 Boys Hockey Playoff Preview Show. We're going to get into the meat of it. The small schools, by far the largest division in Section 6, which is kind of ironic as they are the small schools.
Absolutely. I don't know how small they are anymore. I got to get a better definition on what a small school is these days. But anyhow, it's all they're set. They know what they're doing. So,
all right. So we'll get started. So 15 teams. So I'll start here. The standings here. Starpoint Spartans come away with it. Edge out Niagara Wheatfield to 11-1 in their division. I believe their only loss was to Willie East, and that was early in the season. And I think we were there.
Yep.
When they beat Willie East later in the season. They actually handed Willie East their first loss in Section 6. That was after East had been a bunch of teams from out of the area. They'd already beaten Will North, and Starpoint beat them. I would kind of describe them as a quiet number one seed. We'll get into more on that later. Randy, who's number 2?
And right now, number 2, we're looking at Niagara Wheatfield, and they are really playing quite well this season. Again, they had a good overall record, and again, I think they're going to give Starpoint a really good run for their money.
All right, next up is at number 3. It's Kenmore West, 8-1, 2-1, 19 points on the year. They had a couple tough games with Niagara Wheatfield in the NFL division, which was really fun. So they end up in that number 3 slot.
West Seneca West comes in next, and they finished with a 7-9-4?
Oh, a 3-6-3.
3-6-3 record. Okay, I'm looking in the wrong column there. And so again, they struggled a little bit this year. We'll talk more about them in a little bit as well.
Williams East is 5. I think there might be a little low. They do very different how they do they rank these teams in the seedings, but Williams East number 5, they're only 11-1. Their only loss we mentioned in league play is to Starpoint. Very good number 5 seed. We saw them a lot here on the NFHS network. They're certainly, I know their expectations are to make it to the finals this year, the sectional finals.
And then it's Kenmore East coming up next. And again, we've done a couple of their games this year. They finished with an overall record of 10-8-2, but 6-4-2 in their division.
Next up at 7, also from the NFL, is Grand Island, 7-3-2 in league play for 16 points. Another team that was competing right with it with Kenmore West and Niagara Wheatfield in that NFL.
And right behind them is Williamsville South. They finished with a 7-5 record in the league and no ties. So that in itself speaks volumes.
All right, at number 9, Iroquois Alden. Of course, they have one of the leading scorers, Brandon Axelton. He's there. They went 6-5, 0-1 on the year for 13 points. That's Iroquois Alden in the 9th seed.
And then we have Sweet Home Depew. They struggled a little bit this year, and they really ended up with in their own division. They're 0-12.
They also play, keep in mind, the CIC one. So they were playing Lancaster and Will North and those teams.
So they had it's a deceiving record, so to speak.
Next up from Niagara Frontier League is at 11 is Loopboard. They went 4-8 this year. We did see they got a big win over Kenmore East, who they're going to face on Saturday in this first round. But Loopboard always has a strong team out there.
Then followed by Hamburg, who finished at a 5-7 record this year as well.
Then 13 is Amherst. They were 1-11.
And then after that is West Seneca East. I can all the East teams here. They, again, had a little bit of a rough season here with a 1-11 divisional record here.
And then North Tonawanda at number 15. They're 0-12 on the year, unfortunately for them. Why don't we jump in a little bit more about these teams? We had the coaches, again, send us their questionnaires. We'll actually get into them. We get maybe about 9 or 10 schools get back to us with their with a little bit more about their teams. We'll start though with the Starpoint Spartans, defending champs, and I kind of alluded to it earlier. They're a very quiet defending champs team at the number 1 seed, right?
That would be the best way to put it. There's no question about it. And again, I always like to use the cliche, they're the team with the target on it, but they do it in such, you're right, I guess that's the best way to describe it. They do it in such a quiet way. They are a team that is well balanced. They have a lot of big scorers on their team. They have a lot of seniors on their team as well that are carrying over. So they've been down this road before. I think the only thing that you really want to make sure of is that these players don't get too confident and think, hey, we did this last year. The coach, I'm sure, is going to remind them of what they had to do to get to that championship last year, and it was not an easy way to get there.
And what's really interesting, Coach was kind of telling me this a few weeks ago when we were at one of their games, is they kind of had a little slump in the middle of the year. They lost to Wakefield. They lost a bad one to Wakefield, 5-1. They lost to Grand Island. But those were non-league games, so it really didn't matter in terms of their seeding, but they still got the lesson, the experience from losing those games and playing tough teams.
And that's huge. I mean, you need to become humble a little bit during a season. You need to get humbled a little bit during the season. And these guys, like I say, they can kill you so quickly with their scoring attempts. They got like Alec Kirk. They've got Justin Bull. William Mainstone are some of their big scorers. And, of course, Frankie Caradella, and those are their big scores on their team, but they have a good balanced scoring attack after that. So anybody on this team can score. They've got good, solid goaltending. But again, coaches got to keep them focused one game at a time. Don't be looking ahead. Take the first game that comes up.
And we saw them last year. I mean, they went to overtime last year in that state final game. They were that close to winning a state championship.
And they were taking on a team in the state championships that supposedly wasn't supposed to lose to anybody or have any struggles against anybody, and Starpoint gave them fits. There was no question about that.
All right, you mentioned their top players. Some of the surprise players for Coach Wilson, he said Jacob Cyrick, their forward, Joe Mancuso, he's been really impressed with them. The big challenge this year, trying to get the team to buy into team-first mentality. Big key right now is to take care of their defensive zone, win one-on-one battles, and then the expectations, don't surprise here, to make it back to the Saxon Six championship games. And I think they're one of the favorites. Not only do that, but win it.
Exactly. And again, though, I'm sure Coach is really concerned, as I said a minute ago. You got to keep that team focused and take it one game at a time. And don't be looking ahead. Don't think about the championship game yet. You've got to get up that ladder and get to that point.
All right, we'll hear from, I spoke with Richie Groh, actually it was yesterday, my first time at Saberland. Here's what Richie had to say about being the number 1 seed this year.
I'm with Richie Groh of Starpoint Hockey. He's the goalie for the number 1 seeded Spartans in the small school division. Richie, I kind of describe you guys as a quiet number 1 seed. You kind of slipped into it towards the end. Is that kind of how you guys feel your season's been going, the quiet favorites in Western New York?
Yeah, I mean, at the start, we started off kind of slow. Taking that loss to NW was big impact. So we decided to put in the extra work and work together as a family to beat the other teams and put in the extra effort to win.
All right, you yourself behind the net, been very successful. What's best this year?
Once again, mostly just put in the extra work. I've been waking up at 5 a.m. to go play hockey, so I love hockey. Everyone else on the team loves hockey, so that's really why we were successful. When I was successful, I put in the extra work.
All right, you guys are the top seed in what was really a tight race to the end in this small school division. You got Wheatfield, Will East, Ken West. How do you feel about, being in this small school division, how tight it is? Are there teams that you're maybe, or I don't want to say scared, but are going to be a bigger challenge than others?
Probably Will East would probably be a big challenge. We lost to them once and then came back and beat them. I guess we just worked harder in that game. I guess we wanted it more, but Will East is probably the team we're not, I wouldn't say worried about, but gotta show up for that game.
All right, and finally, you guys are the defending champs. You made it all the way to that state final last year. What is it going to take for you guys to get back there?
Really just teamwork and putting in the extra work for the win, I guess. Really just moving the puck fast, trying to get it off your stick before people get to it, all the basics of hockey, but just putting in hard work.
From Start Point, I was looking at the stats here, and we'll get into it a little more, but Alec Kirk, fourth leading scorer in the Fed right now, with 50 points in the year, 27 goals, 23 assists. He really came up big in those sectional and state playoffs last year.
Absolutely, he did. And the other part is, too, I noticed, and I go into their website occasionally, I think it was Alex Kirk and I think it was Justin Bull both passed the 100-point mark this year for careers. And so that speaks volumes just alone for those two players.
Well, not to mention having, in the same year, have two guys be able to reach that mark.
And the thing of it is, you take a look at that top line they've got. I've never seen a team that was able to play with three guys together play as well as they do together. It's like they know where they are on the ice at all times, and that's a huge advantage.
All right, that will do it for Start Point. We'll move on next to Iroquois Alden. They are, again, the number 9 seed in the playoffs. They are led this year by Braden Axelson. He is one of the leading scorers in the Fed. I believe he's number 8 right now. Let's see. I'm trying to pull up their coach. They're coached by Duke Ziegler. Some of their other top players are Kevin Reilman and Gubligrito Trowski. Surprise player this year have been Tyler Bernana and Gavin Sparfield. Their biggest issue, though, was losing one of their senior captains, Michael Capozzi, to a broken ankle in December. That's why I think they probably took a dip, because they came out and they were one of the stronger teams in the Fed. And you can see they taken a dip down since.
And when you take a look at a player like Michael Capozzi, at the time of his injury, he had 7 games under his belt with 5 goals and 3 assists. He had 8 points. He was averaging better than a point a game. That's huge when you lose a player like that.
Yeah. Their mindset is going to be that to believe that any given night that they can win if they come hungry, full of energy, and they're just going to take it one game at a time. That's what Coach Ziegler was saying in his questionnaire.
And again, it's a repeat. I think every coach has that same philosophy, but you really have to stress it. You can't be looking ahead here. And yes, keeping this team focused, that's what's going to be their big advantage this year, if they can do that going into the playoffs.
All right, next we'll go up to Niagara County. We'll talk about Lewiston Porter. The Lancers are head coached by Kevin Kirsch. Last year, this team lost in the quarterfinals. They're led by forward Eddie Lynch and Rocco Renadazzo and defenseman Nate Titoni and Michael Nadicaro. Their surprise players this year are forwards Tristan Willis and defenseman Owen Muggleton. Their challenge is the fact that they've had injuries and they're a young team. And their game plan right now in the playoffs is to play more consistent and not letting things get too high or too low.
Exactly, and that with this team, they're going to need some of their, how do I want to put this, they're lesser scoring players. They've got to step up to the plate as well and not depend on the 3 or 4 guys that have carried them so far this season. Everybody's got to step up to this one, and they all have to play a game and then chip in where they can.
All right, next we'll move on to Williamsville South. They are the 8th seed after going 7-5 in ECIC 2 this year. They are led by Coach Sean Green. Their top players are Nolan Feinberg and Delvin Krakowiak, and on forward defense, Sam Lemondola, Ian Koronowski, and Shane Nice. Goalies Caleb Headings and Bennett Piters. Their surprise players have been Nate Lemondola, Drew Beller, and Noah Stoffel. And their challenges this year just been consistency and doing well in the power play.
And that consistency for Coach Green to say that is, yes, that's a big thing. I did see them play a couple of times this year, and yes, one period they looked like world beaters. The next period, they kind of slacked off a little bit. So they've got to be consistent for 3 periods here. And really, they've got 2 big scorers on the team. Feinberg is one of them with 26 goals, 49 points. And that's followed by Davin Krakowiak, who has 47 points on the year with 22 goals and 25 assists. He has a brother, Ian Krakowiak, who has 28 points on the year. But, yes, they've got to look to other players as well to help carry that team.
All right, next we're going to go to West Seneca West. They are slated as the number 4 seed in the small school playoffs. They are led by Coach Kevin Rosa. Remember, this team is only a couple years off of winning that state champion. Or no, they making the state final that year, and they lost in the state title to Sweet Home. They're led by goalie Kyle Daly and defenseman Joey Shea. Their surprise player has been Colin Garvey. They had to play in ECIC 1 this year, so that was a big challenge for them. I think that's why they probably got bumped up to probably the 4 seed, despite only having 3 wins. He said they're very strong on the back end and goal, but they do need to get scoring. They feel like if they could score, a couple goals, that they could be a very dangerous team in these playoffs.
And again, they've got like 3 or 4, and you've mentioned them, 3 or 4 really good scores, average scores that can score goals for you. But again, they need to pick up with some of their other players. And yes, when they say they depend on Kyle Daly as their goaltender, according to this, he played in 19 of their games this year. I'd say they really do depend on him, and so they're going to be looking to him, and he's going to come in with a lot of experience under his belt here, and probably depend on the defenseman in front of him to help protect him a little bit. But he could be the guy that could be a difference maker for that team.
All right, we're going to head back up to Niagara County. We're going to talk about the Wheatfield Falcons, storied program here in Western New York. They lost in the quarterfinals last year, but they're coming out strong this year. They're led by forwards Anthony LaGreca, Robert Wegren, Roman Adamsick, Nick Simon, and Evan Belter. And I don't know about you, Randy. I feel like Robert Wegren's been around for like 10 years. I keep hearing the name, Wegren, Niagara, Wheatfield, always leading scoring. Absolutely. Maybe he had an older brother that I'm forgetting about, but I feel like he's been around for 10 years.
It seems like it, and I'll tell you, he's been around for a while on this team. But again, this is a team that, yes, as you said, comes with a rich history behind it. And I just saw them play a while back, and they have a very good team this year that could, again, create some havoc in the playoffs, so to speak, and could cause and could move up very quickly in the playoffs if they get a couple of key wins.
Surprise players been goalie Jake Armine. We saw him. He had a big game against Kemmel Reese a couple weeks ago. On defense, there's Jake Smith, Jason Kindler, and forwards Adam Perry, Will Coble. Coach did say they need to work on their power play this postseason. He believes it should be one of the top power plays in the Fed, and it didn't reach his expectations the regular season, so he's hoping that changes come postseason.
Which then wouldn't surprise me in some of their practices now leading up to the playoffs that they're going to be working on that power play.
One man who I'm almost certain is on that power play, Robert Wegman. I spoke to him, what was it, a week ago or so, almost a week ago, about how he's feeling about going into the playoffs.
I'm with Robert Wegrin of Niagara Wheatfield's boys hockey. They are one of the top teams in the small school division this year. Robert, really good season. I know this past week hasn't been the best, but overall, what's been the key to your guys' success this year?
Definitely just working teams down. You know, we have a little saying on the team as pounding the rock. Just keep going. You know, sometimes teams are just going to break down, and that's what we try to get. Just keep pounding these teams, and you know, really work the puck down low well, and just get in the third period. Hopefully, break down these teams.
Robert, you're one of the top scorers in the Fed. Tell me, what's been the key to your success this year?
Definitely feeding off the energy of all the boys. And we just, like I said, the puck's down low. We really work it well down low and working it up to the points, getting shots, really just shooting pucks. You got to shoot pucks to score. So,
all right, this small school race is really tight at the top. It's you guys, Starpoint, Ken West, Will East. Is there maybe one team out of the others? Not to give somebody bulletin board material, but how do you feel about that race at the top of the small school division?
I would say our own enemy is ourselves. We gotta play ourselves. We can't let other teams dictate what we're gonna do. We just gotta play our game, our system, and we'll be good. We'll definitely go far.
And finally, what is going to be the key for you guys to have success this postseason?
Just staying in the system, working hard, and breaking down these teams, and not giving them anything. We gotta keep working.
Robert Wegrin is number 9 in scoring overall this year, 44 points on the year, 24 goals, 20 assists.
I was going to say, he's got some impressive stats there, and he seems like he's pretty well focused on what this team's got to do going into the playoffs.
All right, next we're going to talk about a team that we've seen a lot of this year. That's the Williamsville East Flames. They're led by Coach Mike Torello. Last year lost in the semifinals. They are led by Julian Hamilton, Ryan Lilianich, Mike Scioli, Kyle Roach, and this team we mentioned earlier, only one loss in Section 6. They beat Will North for the first time in maybe 7 years or so. No one even remembered the last time when we asked. That was a big game for them. Big thing he said, their surprise players, Andrew Sharkey, Tyler DeSanti, Nick Mendola, Noah Hoffman. The big thing they're trying to focus on is scoring goals in big games. They've struggled with that a bit this year, and then the goal is to play good team hockey, especially on their own end of the ice.
Well, I'll tell you, you take a look at this team. Yeah, we talked about their overall record, 13-6-1. Their division record is 11-1. You know about the one loss. I take a look at their scoring. Yeah, they've got like 3 guys that, they carry the team, but again, they got a balanced scoring attack there. Everybody seems to chip in. So, I think the coach is looking for somebody that'll come up with the key goals when they really need it, to maybe get a jump out there, to maybe make some surprises on some opposition. So this is a team that could really, do some serious damage in the playoffs and could end up in a championship game.
All right, next we're going to go to the Kenmore West Blue Devils. This team last year lost in the quarterfinals. They finished second in the NFL this year. But, Randy, I want to go to the stats page real quick. Top leading scorer of the whole Fed, Ian Worth, 62 points.
Is that all?
I'm
just kidding.
Second,
Just kidding.
Nate Bird, 57 points. And third in the Fed, Christian Leone, 50 points. Top 3 scorers, all from Kenmore West. Do you think they know how to score goals over there?
I think they know how to score goals, and I'll tell you, if I'm the opposition having to face them, I would tell the line that goes out against those guys, just stay on them.
Don't worry about scoring.
Yeah, don't worry about scoring. Play defensively. Throw yourself like a blanket over them to try and stop them, because if they can stop those guys, that might just really cause some frustration for Kenmore West.
All right, and on the back end, Coach wanted to recognize Damian Ish. Of course, we remember last year. He came off. I believe he was ill last year, couldn't play. Yep. They also have Jacob Murdy, Joe Aiello, and then goalie Cam Murdy. Surprise players have been senior forward Avery Vogt and junior forward Ian Ionenko. Their biggest challenge is they have 5 freshmen on the roster that are playing both travel and high school at the same time. So that's, challenge. They don't have all the same lineup the whole time. You got to don't have a consistent lineup, and not to mention, I'm sure that's very taxing for especially young players like that to be playing that much.
Absolutely. And, before Ken West people start sending in cards and letters to Frank Wolf here, I will say this about them as well. Yes, we talked. Francis and I just talked about their big scorers on that team. Well, they've got a pretty balanced scoring attack under. Granted, it kind of falls off after you have 50 points. It kind of falls after that. But it is spread across the roster with a lot of goals and assists. It's consistency, but they've had a really good record. They got a division record of 8-2-2. Again, they could cause some real problems if they can come together as a team and play. They could cause some real problems.
Frank Wolf went down to Lincoln Arena and battled the traffic circle, which we're not going to talk about, and talked with Christian Leone and Rob Zrozak. Here they are.
Chris Leone, senior forward, Ken West. You guys have 2 more games before you make your playoff run. What's the mindset of the locker room right now? And what's an area of concern for your team, something you want to work on? And then what's going strong for you guys right now?
I think mindset in the locker room right now, we're just trying to focus on making these last couple practices and games good before playoffs. I think we got a couple things to improve on. Breakouts could be better. Our neutral zone could be better. I think just utilizing these practices as a good starting point to get ready for playoffs would be good. I think we do well at cycling right now, and our forecheck could use a little work, but other than that, I think we're ready to go as a team.
Is there a game that you can look back on during the regular season, or a play, or some inspiring moment that's helped maybe bring the team together throughout the season? Is there anything that happened this year that really brought you guys together?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a low point, but I think after that Niagara Wheatfield loss, it was tough because we were on a roll right off the start of the season. So I think that really brought us together and made us realize that if we work together as a team, we have a chance at winning this thing. So.
Rob Rozak, Kemmer West. Coach, a couple more games before the playoffs. Start in Section 6. You're a former Section 6 champion. What's it going to take for the Kemmer West Blue Devils to get back to the Section 6 championship game? Do you like where your team's at right now with a couple games remaining? What do you really want to focus on in the last week of games?
I think our last four league games we played St. Mary's, Kent East, Grand Island, and St. Francis. So that's a pretty good test of those teams, especially playing 2 of the better private schools, playing Kemmer East, who's your rival, and Grand Island, who again is like a secondary rival for us. So those games are competitive. So we really need to focus on working on our defensive end. We can score goals, but we got to make sure we don't have goals in the back of our net. So that's going to be the focus for this week of practice. We don't play until Saturday against Sweet Home. Then we have a pretty big one against Wheatfield on Sunday. So our focus is kind of try to clean up the defensive end and just try to clean up the little things. I've been satisfied the last couple games. The results haven't gone our way. We got 2 ties and 2 close losses, but I think we're headed in the right direction this season. And I said, look at the team when we started. I think this has enough talent to compete for a sectional championship, and I firmly believe that we are like one of the 6 or 7 teams that can compete for a championship this year.
Is it wide open in your opinion?
I always say this: the small school playoffs in Section 6 are the toughest playoffs anywhere in the state. You have to win 4 games. 3 of the games are going to be probably difficult games against quality opponents. It's difficult. Like, you look at us 2 years ago, we were not a high seed. We had to play seeds that are higher than us every game. It's a real grind. It's also, you're playing weekend, then Tuesday, then Wednesday, Tuesday, then Thursday, and then the finals on Monday. So you're only getting one, maybe 2 days off in between games. So it's a grind, but I think a team that's healthy, I think a team that's playing well will be the team that comes out at the end at the Harbor Center, not Harbor Center, excuse me, the Key Bank Center at the end of February.
Coach, you've played a lot of overtime games over the last few years. You won 3 overtimes to get to your Section 6 championship.
4, Frank, 4.
I was getting to that, Coach. But it took a 4th overtime to win a Section 6 championship. Do you skate harder? Do you skate them longer in practices, knowing that it's going to take an extra period of hockey or two to get to your ultimate goal?
I think you try to, in games, try to get as many of your players out there, because you're never going to know when you're going to need them. If you look at that Star Point game, we had kids getting shifts that didn't get that many shifts during the first 3 periods because they needed fresh legs. So I think you've got the team that's the deeper teams, the teams that can go more than 2 lines and 4 or 5D are the ones that kind of benefit in those situations where you're playing like overtime settings and stuff. But I think definitely the deeper teams, the teams that are better prepared, your bottom guys are the ones that have a good chance of winning the whole thing.
All right, welcome back. I do apologize. I got Rob Rozak's name spelled wrong, I believe. That was on me. But I did go back when Christian Leone, he talked about Niagara Wheatfield losing. So this only happens in hockey. So they lost to him December 10th, 7-3. Fast forward to this past Sunday, they beat Niagara Wheatfield 5-2. Only in hockey, right,
Only
Randy?
in hockey. Only in hockey, where you can lose one and then just come right back. And there's no explanation for it. There's absolutely you could get your PhD in this, and I don't think it would work.
Yeah, and I should point out also, Frank asked about Kenmore West winning games in overtime. Do you want to point out they did lose to Kenmore East this year in overtime at this year at the Northtown Center. That game was on the NFHS network, so I do want to point that out.
Absolutely, and it's one of those things that can happen. And yeah, when you go into that overtime, it can become a real crapshoot, so to speak, for something like that in a overtime.
All right, final team of the small schools that we're going to talk about, the Amherst Tigers. They're led by Coach Chris Dulce. They lost in the first round of the playoffs last year. They're led by senior forward Lori Fisher, junior forwards Ted Trusco, Patrick Kantz, senior defenseman Eric Gudek, and Charles Simon. Goalies have been splitting time back into the season between Matthew Freeland and Henry Bisler. Surprise players have been sophomore defenseman Dante Russo and Nolan Litz, freshman forwards Hayden Cole, Tyler Newton, and Will Wersinger. So their challenges, they have a very young squad. 9 players are underclassmen, 3 freshmen, 6 sophomores. So he really needs to develop that inexperience. And then the key is going to be stay out of the box and play hard for 3 periods.
And boy, you said a mouthful in there. We've talked about this with some other teams here that we've covered over this past season. But yes, staying out of the penalty box, that's a huge thing. If you're a team that gets penalized a lot, and I noticed that they do have a lot of penalty minutes here on this Amherst team. They have a young team, and they don't have big scores, but man, they spread their scoring out. So, I mean, everybody chipped in this season. It just depends on if they can bring it together as a team right now. And yes, I'm sure they're looking at the future right now. They've got a young team. Hopefully they can learn from this experience this season and then learn from however far they get in the playoffs.
All right, that will do it for the small schools. When we come back, final segment, we're going to talk about the large schools, even though they have a smaller amount of teams. But we're going to be talking the large schools coming up next, and we're going to tell you where you can watch all in the schedule and where you can watch all of the Section 6 boys hockey playoff games. This is the boys hockey playoff preview show on Western New York Athletics.
I love being home.
There's nothing better than owning the perfect house to come home to. You've earned it, and we'll make it happen. Our local real estate experts and in-house team of financial professionals make buying or selling your home simple. Howard Hanna. Home happens here.
I love being home.
Sometimes it just isn't your day. We all need a little help from time to time. That's why we're committed to providing safe, quick, and cost-effective care, and we keep it simple. Just walk in. We're here for you. Learn more today.
Do you insure a lot of businesses?
Yes, we do.
How about restaurants?
We got a bunch.
Do you cover property damage?
Yes, we do.
How about my equipment?
Covered.
How about sewer backup?
We got it.
What if my cook gets hurt?
They're covered.
Foodborne illnesses?
Covered.
What if my party tent goes down?
Covered under property damage.
And you say this is all under one policy?
One policy.
When do I pay?
Once a month.
Just one time?
Just one.
Is there anything you don't cover?
What's your record for consecutive questions asked?
31.
Tables. We don't do tables.
Gotta love Buffalo.
For all your insurance questions, call the Wolf at 835-WOLF.
All right, welcome back. We were watching the Paul Wolf Agency commercial, which I know this is why we need Norman here, because he would know right away what that's a spoof of, but I think it's a spoof of something.
It is. I just love the way they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it's.
And I think
wow.
BJ shot it too. I think he's the one who shot it. You know,
Wow.
BJ Stack.
It's like
he does camera for us sometimes.
Does a great job there. Wow, unbelievable. Anyhow, back to hockey here.
Back to hockey. We're gonna go to large schools. I kind of did their standings by accident, but we're gonna do them again because why not?
Exactly.
So this large school is led by Orchard Park, defending champions again, 9-2-1 on the season. Tight race really at the top. Followed at Lancaster, 1 point behind. They're 8-2-2. Clarence, 7-2-1. 17 points. They're the third seed, followed by Will North at the fourth seed, also with 17 points. Frontier is the 5 seed, 3-7-2, and then Lockport 4-8 this year. I believe they played in the NFL. That 6 seed to round out the large schools. So why don't we jump in here? We're going to start with the Orchard Park Quakers. They're led by Coach Josh Daniker. They are led by Braden Hearn. You'll hear from him in just a little bit. He's one of the best goalies, according to him, and really the stats show, too, one of the best goalies in their division and the Fed. They have Schlitz, who's their top scorer and captain. He's a fast skater. He has a good shot. Chase, I don't have a last name here.
It looks like, and I apologize for the pronunciation of this, but it could be Kurtanjak. Kurtanjak. It's Chase's first name.
Chase, yeah. So also along with Niesland and Rosowski, they've been solid up front scoring as well. New coach, and their top D have been Kramer, is their top defenseman. Kramer, and then Berzidek is also another senior leader and a key penalty killer. Carter has been one of their big surprises. They also were getting good contributions from O'Hara and Ciano. He says the biggest challenge they have, they need to be more consistent. They're always strong with Hearn behind the net, but they need to play better a little bit in front of him. They can't just rely on him. Then he also wants to, we had another coach mention this, also want to work on their power play. That's always a key, especially this time of year, converting on those chances you get.
When you get the advantage of a player in a penalty situation, you want your power play to really kick in there and to show something. But wow, when they talk about Braden Heem and in goal, he has a 1.57 goals against average with a 9.39 save percentage. He had 3 shutouts on this season. Sometimes when you got a goalie like that back there who can make some unbelievable, spectacular saves, sometimes the team gets lulled into and says, if we make a mistake, he can bail us out. Well, no, don't always depend on that. It starts up front with the forwards and then goes to the defenseman and then to the goalie. And right now, they've got a good, balanced scoring attack. And again, I've said this repeatedly about a lot of teams, but when I look at their scoring chart, they've got a lot of their players at least scored a goal this year, so they can depend on more than just their key 2 or 3 players. They look to the whole team to do it. But again, their coach summed it up perfectly. Be consistent, and that's going to be probably the biggest thing they got to focus on.
One man who's been consistent at stopping pucks is Braden Hearn. Let's hear from him next. I'm with Braden Hearn of Orchard Park Hockey. He's their goalie. Orchard Park right now, top 2, top 3 in the large school division. So, Braden, tell me, what's been the key to Orchard Park's success this year?
We've just been playing to our strengths and the system that Fonz has put in for us. And we stay solid in the back end, and then
once we get out of our D zone, we get to move to the offensive zone and try and bury some goals.
All right, you yourself have had a great season so far, keeping your team in games, couple of shutouts. Tell me what's been the key to your success this season?
Just feeding off the energy in the locker room and doing what I can to help our team be in the best position we can to succeed for playoffs and in league division play.
All right, you guys are in a tough, large school division. You got North, Clarence, Lancaster. Is there maybe one team, I don't want to say scared, but, concerns you the most or, is going to be a tough challenge?
I think they all are equally as tough, but we've had some good success against Lancaster, beating them both times, but North and Clarence, we lost to them once, so I feel like either of those games could go anyway.
All right, and finally, tell me one thing you guys need to be able to do in order to have success this postseason.
We just have to get out of our D zone as quickly as possible. If we get stuck in our D zone, we tend to get scored on a little bit more than if we just get it out as quickly as we can. But as long as we do that, then we'll be successful for playoffs.
All right, we're back. I should mention Braden Hearn wasn't practicing that day because he actually had a driver's test right then. So, I mean, getting your license, that's pretty important. Those driver's tests, they don't come, you got to go when you can.
Absolutely. And for high school students, yeah, that's a big thing to fit into your schedule here. So that was he had a lot to say, and he said it in a few words, and he's focused. I think he's going to be a guy. He will be a difference maker for his team. There's no question about it.
Not to go off on a tangent here, pull Frank here.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I had a friend in high school who apparently, so she went to take her driver's test, and she failed it. And there's this weird thing on the ticket because they give you like why you failed, what you got points off for. She's like, there's this weird thing on there. So she went to the DMV and asked about it. They're like, yeah, we don't take off for this. And then they're like, so can you describe your driver, the person who gave you the test? And she described him, and she's like, oh yeah, we fired him. An old driver, what do you, Proctor or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, a guy who was fired, who didn't work there anymore, actually pretended that he just took did the tests.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then failed her.
And then wow. I thought there were bizarre things happening these days. Wow, that is bizarre.
Anyways, on that note, let's talk about the Lancaster Legends. I don't know how to transition that, but
smooth.
They're led by Coach John Bach. They lost in the semifinals last year. They have a lot of really key senior leadership. Alex Judica, she's their captain. Andrew Uzinski, Ethan Bach, Teddy Zwack. All four leaders have done a great job blending the underclassmen, according to Coach. Some other guys, Quinn Maley, he's led the team in goals. Andrew Uzinski, he leads the team with assists. David Merschel, Eric Karstrom, they've had strong seasons. Alex Judica is a senior defenseman on this team. And then they have three strong goalies, D, Balk, and Kowalski. And we believe D, I think it's David D's son, which I can't think of his name, even though I see it all the time on Facebook.
It's Brendan?
Brendan D, who's the son of David D, who has been around for years with Spectrum, and he's now at Canisius College doing great things. So we all have a soft spot for the Lancaster Legends because of that.
Absolutely, no question about it. And I'll tell you, you take a look at this Lancaster team, and one of the things, I hear coaches say, and this coach really did point it out, and I know there's a few coaches out there that do the same thing. Every year when they find out who their seniors are, they do put a mantle or whatever you want to call it around them to say, you're leaders now. You're a senior. You've been on this team. You've got to set the tone for the rest of the team, and I think this is what he's doing with a lot of what few veterans he has on the team. He put that mantle of leadership on them, and that's good. I like that because that means the juniors this year see that. They've got to prepare now for next year, and this is, it's good. And you take a look again at this team, and yes, their scoring is really between 3 or 4 players. It's the goaltending is going to be maybe what carries them as well. They got to get some good hot goaltending there.
All right, and then real quick, one thing he wants the team to focus on is trusting their system, playing discipline, and getting all the kids, all the players to focus on their job. And he thinks if they can do that, they can have a successful postseason.
And sometimes you get, players that all of a sudden they're all over the ice, or they lose sight of really what their job is on the team. They need to stay focused on this, and I'm sure that as they get ready for the playoffs, this is what the coaching staff is really pushing on them.
All right, next we'll move on to the Clarence Red Devils. They're led by Coach Rick Brooks of the Clarence Red Devils. Right now they are led by Luke Marchand, who you'll hear from in just a second. He has 35 points, 23 goals, 12 assists on the year. They also have Sean Stewart, another junior, with 25 points. In net, they are led by Ben Schumacher. He's a senior, 18 games played. And he has 451 saves on the year with a save percentage of about 93%.
And that sums it up right there with the goaltending. He's the guy that's going to carry them into the playoffs and they're going to depend on that goaltending. And they're going to look to the rest of their team as well to get some balanced scoring attack here going.
All right, let's hear from their top scorer, Luke Marchand.
I'm with Luke Marchand of Clarence Boys Hockey. They are getting ready for the playoffs. Luke, you guys are, second, third in the large school division. Tell me, what's been the key to your team's success this year?
I think the key to our success has been more of the team play. We don't get individual, and we just work the puck around, and it turns into lots of chemistry for our team, and it just ends up in goals and wins for us.
You've been the one that's been scoring a lot of these goals. You're one of the top goal scorers in all the large schools. Tell me, what's been the key to your success this year?
I think the biggest thing is my line mates, Jeremy DeRigo and Caden Alex. We work really well together. We've been playing together since the beginning of the season. I played with Caden last year. Jeremy coming in as a freshman has made a big impact. And it's just my line pretty much. And whenever we're out there, everyone's trying to lock us down, and we find a way.
All right, your large school division's pretty tight. You have Orchard Park up there. You have Lancaster, Will North. Is there a team that you think is the biggest challenge for you guys?
I think it might be Orchard Park, but we beat them. We beat them 3-2 in our last game against them. But they're tough. They're really fast, and the way that they play, it's very hard to play against them.
All right, and then finally, give me one thing you guys need to do in order to have success this postseason.
I think we just need to stick to our game plan, and I think we'll be fine. We've done that all year, and every game has been close. We haven't lost by more than 2 goals in any game. And as long as we stick to our game plan and don't make little mistakes and all that, I think we'll be good.
All right, welcome back. That was Luke Marchand of Clarence. They are, trying to get this right here. They're going to be the 3rd seed in this large school playoffs, playing tomorrow night. We'll have more on that schedule in just a little bit here. You wanted to point something out, right?
Oh, hey, I always make sure I want to point out one particular player on their team, Austin Unisic. Austin is the son of Shelly Unisic, who happens to be the person who runs the Cornerstone Arena in Lockport, who really took really good care of this group here this past weekend with the girls' high school championships and for the championship game, and took care of all the needs that we had to have to get the broadcast off the ground, and she did a great job. So just wanted to get that little plug in there.
Of course, me, Joe, and Clevis almost got locked in, but that wasn't her fault. We're not going to blame her for that one.
We won't.
But we found our way out anyway.
Absolutely. Thank God for that. Or I'd be hosting this show tonight all by myself here.
All right. Next, we'll go to the Williamsville North Spartans, led by one of the more storied coaches in all the Fed, Bob Rosen. Similar, I guess, to St. Joe's, a storied program, not having a typical Will North year, but they're in the thick of it, and who knows what could happen. Of course, they're led by Matt Kasperitz at goalie. You'll hear from him in a little bit. They also have Dominic Maricana, Matthew White, Caleb Okulowicz, Christopher Kramer, Brendan McDermott, Samuel Wilgross, Jack Neal. Surprise player this year has been Christopher Kramer. The key is to play consistently, and one thing they're trying to do is do the little thing as well.
And, that Christopher Kramer, he talks about in 18 games, had 17 points, including 8 goals. With his teams, the one thing I'm always impressed with, they are such a disciplined team out there. Very rarely do they ever take really stupid penalties that can cost them. And they can be a very disciplined team out on the ice. They perform, they execute a lot of things well. If there's one thing I know about Bob Rosen, he will have this team focused and ready to go when the playoffs begin. And yeah, he knows. He's been in it for a long time. And yes, you used the correct word, storied career. He has been in this game a long time. He knows anything can happen on any given day with a game between two teams. So I think he'll tell that to his team as well.
All right, we'll hear from Coach Rosen in a second, but first, let's get Matt Kasperwitz, goalie for the Spartans.
Matt Kasperwitz, Will North junior goaltender. Matt, the playoffs are upon us. Will North has won 3 out of their last 4. What's the mindset of that locker room right now as you guys make your playoff run?
We think if we play our game, we can beat anyone we want. And we're just trying to stay consistent, disciplined, and stay consistent.
Let me ask you this. What's one area right now that the team is struggling in that they can improve on? And what's an area that you guys are playing at your best?
I think we're doing great in the defensive zone, and I think we got to improve the offensive zone consistency. Sometimes we have great communication, and we're all clicking together, and sometimes we're not, and it's usually why we lose.
Coach Rosen, you guys are winners of 3 of your last 5 as you enter the quarterfinals. Just talk about where your team is right now. Do you like your team as they head into the playoffs, where they're at right now, and maybe what's one area you want to see some improvement before you take the ice for your first playoff game?
Yeah, you always want to go in playing on a high note. We've had some tough games against good competition, and a couple won in overtime, one lost one. But we progressed from the beginning of the year, and the biggest thing is we need to stay out of the box, stay disciplined, and do little things well. The consistency of play hasn't always been there. We haven't been great in third periods. We've lost 4 games where we've been leading or tied going into the third period. So that's something that we've been stressing and working on, and just taking care of our own end.
Is there a player or a core group of players right now that you're going to be really leaning on as you guys head into this first playoff game or make this playoff run? Is there a guy or a couple guys in there that you can look to help carry your message through that locker room?
Frank, we depend on everybody, and whether it's practice or games. I mean, one year we're getting on the bus to go to Utica, and one of our top forwards went to throw his bag on and got 25 stitches in his hand. Out. Now I had to bring a kid, put him in that situation, and play minutes. We broke it up. So, we need everybody to be on the same page, because you never know when that opportunity comes, and it may not be in the minutes, but everybody fulfilling their role and accepting that role.
You've been in this position a bunch. You're the most successful high school hockey coach in the area. Talk to me about what it's going to take to take the Section 6 title, and is there a clear-cut favorite right now in the large schools?
I don't think so. I think anybody can win. I mean, Orchard Park is the defending champ. They certainly can win. Lancaster, we had 2 overtime games. Clarence is playing well. Frontier, who we play in the first round. Of all my years, this is probably the most balanced and even that it can be. On any given night, I've watched some of the other teams, and you watch them, and it would be like, oh my God, we have no chance against them. So we're hoping. We hope we catch some people on a bad night.
Thanks.
Coach Bob Rosen, Williamsville North storied coach, and a lot of history.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you, he's a class act. There's no question about it. And I hope his players that they're playing for him this year appreciate the knowledge that this man has, not only in hockey, but just in life in general. He takes these guys under his belt, and he teaches them a lot of good hockey lessons as well as life lessons. He's a great coach, a great individual.
All right, final team of the night we're going to talk about Lockport Niagara Falls. How many years have they been combined now?
Oh,
Maybe
wow.
3 or 4?
I want to say it's been about 4 years now that they have been combined. And it was a real shocker when all of a sudden those two teams went together, because if there was ever a rivalry, not only because they're both Niagara County teams, but they were rivals in sports, to have these two come together in hockey, of all sports, has been absolutely amazing.
All right, last year they were coached by Tom Dockery. Last year this team lost in the first round of the playoffs. They're led by Christian Alazone, Ethan Baylor, Trent Robinson, Nicholas Alazone, and Carson Robbins. Surprise player has been Jameis Taylor, their goaltender. He's in his first year with the team, and he's played phenomenal, kept them in a lot of games. One of the challenges they face, depth, even though they have two of the biggest schools in not only Niagara County, but really Western New York. They do struggle with numbers. But their key is going to be playing solid defense and taking care of the possession in the defensive zone.
That's right, because if they can play a good defensive game, good defense, and I learned this a long time ago from the late coach Roger Nielsen in the NHL, a good defense can create very good offense. And all you need to do is have a team make a mistake and capitalize on it, and that could make the biggest difference in a game. And, yeah, they're going to have to really work together as a team because they don't have a lot of big scoring on that team. They're going to depend on that defense, and they'll just have to wait and see what they can do. And it'll be that big game is, I'm sure Tom Dockery will have them ready for that one, and then just see what happens after that.
All right, speaking of games, let's talk about those games that are happening this week and next week. We'll start with the games happening tonight. Why don't we pull that up? This is going to look a little weird, but in a little bit it'll make more sense. So our first game is actually happening. I think it's getting underway right now. Williamsville South versus Iroquois Alden. That's happening right now on the NFHS network. Our man Tim Gardner's there keeping track of that one. Small school pre-quarterfinals continue Friday. It'll be Niagara Wheatfield against North Tonawanda. That's 5:30, followed by West Seneca East against Kenmore West. So those are the three small pre-quarter games on Wednesday and Friday. And then Thursday, actually, let's go to Saturday first. I was wrong. I had that. So Saturday pre-quarterfinals continue. They have 4 games. So I know last year they did Saturday and Sunday. This year they're changing up to Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. No game Sunday. I think the website has a game Sunday. That game is actually happening right now. So Saturday, Amherst, West Seneca West at 1, followed by Hamburg, Williamsville East, Newport, Kenmore East, 6 p.m., and then the nightcap will be Sweet Home Depew against Grand Island. And then those games, the last 2 games there, Newport, Kenmore East, and Sweet Home Depew, we're going to have John Haruba and Tim Morozak call those games. The other 2 we were going to have on, we couldn't find anybody to get them, but you'll still be able to watch them on the NFHS network. Thursday, we're going to jump back in time to Thursday. That's where we're going to do the large school quarterfinals. First game is the Lockport Niagara Falls team we talked about against Clarence, led by Luke Marchant. That's at 5:30 tomorrow, and it'll be followed by Frontier against Williamsville North. So those are your large school quarterfinals. And then we don't have them in there, but the Catholic game, the private school games are also Thursday, and we just secured that those are both going to be on the NFHS network. The St. Joe's network is going to carry those on their channel. That game, I believe they're facing St. Mary. No, they're facing Bishop Timon, and then the St. Mary's Canisius game, which is happening before then, is going to be on the NFHS network. You can go to our page, the WNY Athletics page, to find that one, all these games. And then next week, why don't we pull up that so you know when these things are happening. I brought out the weekly schedule, so you can see it on your screen. Monday is going to be the large school semifinal, 6 and 8:30, Harbor Center. Tuesday, that's the big day where we're going to do we have the small school quarterfinals. We're going to have a crew at Northtown. We're going to have a crew at Harbor Center. Wednesday is going to be the private school semifinals. That's going to be 6 and 8 at the Harbor Center. Thursday is going to be the small school semifinals, 6 and 8:30 at the Harbor Center. And then you can see on the 28th, Super Monday, as I like to call it, kind of stealing that old Super. Do you know where the Super Sunday came from, Randy?
Not really.
No.
I want to say, I think they kind of stole it from the fact that you had Super Bowls on Sunday, and I think they just decided to go with that super title and then make it a Super Sunday. It was the big climax to the end of the season.
Because there used to be. Oh, you're right. It is the 27th. So my graphic is wrong there. So the 27th is 27th is Super Monday. You can see it on your screen. The small school final 3:45, private school final 6:15, large school final is 8:45. So we'll have those all those games are going to be on the NFHS network. We know we're going to have Jack Ruser for a bunch of those. We have Randy on a couple. I think I'm going to ask him to do a couple more now once the show's over, as I put our schedule together. But yeah, those are our games. Again, they're all on the NFHS network. So you get that subscription. You get all those games we just talked about, plus the regional games, which are going to be, I think it's that following Saturday, which is either the 4th or 5th. And then after that is the following weekend is the state championships at Harbor Center. And, so one subscription, and that's 20 games probably between the sectional playoffs and the state playoffs. Not to mention you can see games in, the Syracuse area, those teams, and from Section 1. So you really get the bang for your buck on that one. So get it now, and some of that money will stay with us, help us keep continuing putting on these broadcasts. So get your subscription now. Plenty of hockey.
And I'll tell you, for the viewers out there, spread the word. This is some good hockey coming up. You've got kids that are really putting it all on the line out here. These kids are playing with their heart. They're really doing it. You're going to see some very, very good hockey games out there. No question about it. Although most of us broadcasters hope for no overtime games. But we've had a few of those this year in playoffs. We had some in the girls' hockey. So really, tune in and enjoy the hockey.
All right, that will do it for us. I will say right now, that'll do for us in Western Athletics. Go ahead to the NFHS network. We're getting you started with that Will South Iroquois Alden game. Go ahead and watch that. But for right now, for Nick, our producer, for Randy Schultz, I'm Francis Beck. Thank you for tuning in. This was the 2023 Boys Hockey Playoff Preview Show on Western New York Athletics.